Hello and welcome to Superbia Sunday. This is the cinema portion of our day where we're screening a selection of exciting LGBTQ short films, and then we get to spend some time with the filmmakers talking about their work. I'm here today with Finley Letchford-Dobbs, who is a dancer and a choreographer and a photographer, and his work, Season Hold, which you will have seen, is a short dance film that was made as the first of our Superbia Spotlights commissions, which is our kind of really new, exciting program that's an Arts Council funded project that's making it possible for artists in our community to make work where they are with what's around them. And I think Finley's work was like just such a brilliant example of that, because it was in the natural setting where he found himself during lockdown. So thank you for joining us, Finley. And thank you for making such a beautiful film for us. So I guess we'll start there. If you can talk to us a little bit about the idea behind the film, what inspired it, and the making of it.
So during lockdown, I live on a canal boat, so that made the whole thing make a lot more sense. So I wanted to get out of the city centre. So I went towards like the countryside basically, and I found a lovely little mooring that was alongside some woods and a river, and it was just such a beautiful setting, and everything crazy that was going on around me and around everyone, I just found myself in this idyllic little setting. And when all like my dance classes and performances and stuff got cancelled, that had like quite the effect on me, because I just kind of got going with it really. I just started getting somewhere, and it had all kind of come crashing down. So I still wanted to do it, and I found that because I had such great surroundings and such beautiful weather luckily, that I could still do it. So I started just like taking photos of myself, like dancing, and started doing some choreography, doing outdoor lessons, and then you approached me about Superbia Spotlights, so I had the idea to create a season hold. So I wanted to create like a mix of this like idyllic setting that I was living in, and this mindfulness and tranquility that I was experiencing, but also with the clash of anxiety and like financial worry and all the negatives that was coming with COVID. So I thought, what better way to do that in doing my favourite thing?
Yeah, that really comes over, because I mean, even now it feels like a long time ago at the start of the lockdown. And I think at the time when I first saw the film, I was like, oh, like craving that setting that you were in. But then like the other side of it, like you say, is, well, what does it cost us to be separated and all of that worry and stuff. And I remember when we first worked together for Nobody's Watching. So for those who don't know, Finley was one of 5 dancers who worked on a project called Nobody's Watching, where we brought together LGBTQ dancers who wanted to make a piece of work about themselves and their own experience. And we were lucky enough to work with, we were lucky enough to have Darren Pritchard visit us for those rehearsals. And I remember Darren saying to you at the time, with your dancing, you can tell that there's a story to tell. And I feel that that's true for Season Hold as well. I feel like it's such a moment in time and such an experience that's so unique to you. Is that important in your work, like to have a story, to have a...
For me, definitely. Like even like before I started creating my own dance work, a lot of it came from my photography. I always like to just share my experiences, my stories, and my life basically, but I'm not always that great with words and things like that. So my way of expression is through dancing really, and I don't have to say anything. I somehow find a way, like with my choreography and the music that I choose, to like portray these feelings and experiences, and like for the good sort of thing.
Yeah, and I definitely think that it's a language, and people talk about dance as a language, and I wasn't sure I always understood that, but I think I do now, because it's so emotive, and there's nothing between you and the dancer really, which is why it's so powerful. So we've been lucky enough to program a handful of really great films alongside yours, and I'm interested always in what artists think about each other's work. So I'd love to like spend a bit of time talking about the rest of the program with you. So we'll start with Binders by Sade Misha. Now Sade is a really interesting young non-binary artist who works in all different platforms like film and performance and costume and stuff. And they and I are going to be doing a show together in Manchester at a small gallery called Paper next year. So everyone look out for that. But this film is like so brilliant and so unique, and it's a real window into like the whole way that an artist thinks. What did you take from Sade's film?
For me, it was because as a trans man, I can relate to like the binder issue like pretty closely.
Yeah.
I thought it was really brave for someone to want to show off the devices that they use to kind of disguise the parts of the body that they are comfortable with, because most trans people, whether they're non-binary, trans male or trans male, trans masculine, they want to not only hide the parts of their body that they don't feel aligned with themselves, but they don't want to show the devices that do that, because they're not normally very attractive pieces of clothing, and you find yourself just hiding a lot. And I found it was, even though it might not be every trans person's ideal approach to it, I don't think everyone like would want to show them things off, but the fact that there is somebody doing that for them, it's really important and brave that there's someone out there doing it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it reminds me of what you were saying about your work, that it's for the greater good. Like some people from the community express something that others may not be able to. I also loved that they did it in kind of a fun and playful way. They were like, this one's made out of like puffer jacket, this one's made out of canvas. And it was like, it just took down the pressure of that whole shame, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Yeah. And so let's go on to Invisible Women. Did you know the story of those two women, Angela and Lucia, and the amazing kind of lesbian activist history that was right here in Manchester? Because that story was so new to me when I first saw it. What did you think of that?
I honestly, I like probably many other people, I had no idea that these people existed. You hear about all the like the LGBT movements and the big things that changed how we live now and how we can live our lives as LGBTQ people, but these, I've just never heard of them. I'd never heard of these stories and all of these great things that they did, and it was just so important. And I was honestly shocked that that it hadn't been showcased or written anywhere. And it was really poignant when she was sat, I don't know if it was a library or like a research centre, asking the person to like search for these names in the database, and just nothing was coming up.
Yeah.
Like for example, that I think one of the films on Netflix or something about the like first Pride parade and stuff like that, and the group in that bookshop on Christopher Street and things like that. Like everyone knows about that story. Everyone's seen that film, but nobody's heard about these women in Manchester, which is like now a pretty proud LGBT inclusive place.
Yeah.
And they made such a huge difference. And that was like definitely my favourite film in the series that we're showing.
Yeah. That's great to hear. And I agree with you. I feel like sometimes people in our community, we know more about what happened in New York than about what happened in Manchester.
Yeah.
And it's almost a year since that film came out, and we showed the premiere at home last year, and Angela and Lucia came, and they are very much still activists. You know, they're really empowered people. But we were talking in our other conversation, how great would it have been if people like you and I could have seen that film at school as a teenager? I mean, it's a brilliant thing as a teaching tool. Would you agree? Like,
yeah, it was really like educational. Like I actually learned a lot from it about like the history, which that's why it was my favorite, really.
Yeah, same. Learned so much. And so the last film we're going to chat about is Crypsis, and like speaking about learning, you know, about other people in the community, this is what that film was for me. And the filmmaker Chris and the producer Siobhan, they gathered lots of experiences from different refugees and migrants who were moving into the country because of LGBTQ persecution. So they chose that story really carefully, and I found it really, really moving. And you and I have both worked in kind of nightlife settings as well, and that clubbing scene was such an eye-opener, because those places for you and me are obviously like where we work and where we celebrate, but for other people they might be quite a different experience. So there's a lot of tension in that film. What did you think of it? What did you get out of it, Finn?
I thought the like the beginning, where he's getting just bombarded with all of these questions, and you could feel like what he was feeling from the repetitiveness of it, and how many times he had to go through that, and no matter how many times he said it, and the like severity of the things that he was saying, and she was still like, oh well that's just not good enough. Like, can you go and get evidence? And it was like, what, like, how can I? Do you want me to? My friend died. Like, what more do you want? And it was really upsetting that someone who's already been through so much, they still have to battle to just feel safe. You know what I mean? And then when it progressed, like, because the rest of the film, there wasn't any dialogue at all after that bombardment, and you could just feel him like giving up. Like, he tried to go out and get the photos and get the evidence, but he didn't want to, because he didn't feel like he should have to, and he didn't feel like he needed to. And then when he deleted the pictures at the end, he felt like, well, I might as well give up, because even if I do show them these pictures, they're probably going to come up with a reason saying, oh, well, you've just posed for this, you know what I mean? Because he hasn't got enough, or the act from a certain time scale, it's all from one night. So you could really feel what the character was feeling.
Yeah, me too. I really felt, especially because you say the language went away and we just had him and in that silence, and that made him feel quite isolated, and that's what really moved me. But also, I think we're familiar with that as LGBTQ people. It's like, I am who I say I am. Do you know what I mean? And that's a really powerful thing that I think people from outside the community often don't have to face. And that came over so well, even when he didn't say, you know, something, he said a lot just with his face and with his demeanor. So yeah, I love that reading of it. And actually, it's interesting that some people have read the deleting at the end as him giving up, and some people have read it as him taking back his power, saying, no, I'm not going to do that for you. So
I see that.
There's those different possible outcomes, both of which are kind of painful in their own way, but like, yeah. I really enjoyed talking about these films with you, Finley. Thank you so much.
Yeah, me too.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks again.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. And I'd encourage everyone to watch the Superbia Cinema collection. It's going to be online all Sunday and all of the bank holiday Monday. Finley's going to have some photography work in the Superbia gallery. That's the link for that is on the same page. Thanks once again, Finley Letchford-Dobbs. And thank you to everyone for tuning in, and enjoy the rest of Superbia Sunday. Goodbye.
Thank you.